A very good evening to all of you. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for arranging a wonderful evening session. So my topic is the recent updates on tuberculosis. What I am going to talk in next 20-25 minutes is regarding what are the advancements that have been done as far as the treatment is concerned, diagnostics are concerned, and the prevention is concerned. We know that there is a many advancement as far as treatment and diagnostics are concerned. As far as the prevention is concerned, we have very few invention. In fact, I say that there is no invention at all. The BCG vaccine is available since long times, and that is the only gold standard vaccine for prevention is available. Though it doesn't have any 100% efficacy, it ranges from 0 to 80%. However, there are two vaccines are under phase 3 trial, and maybe in the future we have some vaccine for prevention. Now coming to the main to talk part as far as the treatment and diagnostics are concerned for the advancement in TB, let's take first the treatment. And that is again for both, whether it is a multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, means drug resistant or drug sensitive TB, whether the new drugs are available or whether the new regimes are available. Let's first see the drug resistant TB. Now this is basically a mycobacterium structure, and what are the novel drugs with a novel mechanism of actions are available today or in the near future. The first thing is bedaquiline, which is now approved by US FDA. The delamanid, which is approved by the European Agency. These are the only two drugs available in the abroad as a part of approval from the regulatories. Other drugs are under still the phase 3 trial, and these are whether it is sutazolide, PA24, or it is not a pretomanide, and the SQ109. It's a ethambutol analog. Let's see one by one what has happened to it. The bedaquiline basically it acts by inhibiting the ATP synthesis. It is approved by the US FDA in 2012 for only MDR TB adult patients. You have to keep in mind it is not used for the sensitive TB. The doses are a little bit weird. It is 400 mg initially for 2 weeks daily, then 200 mg thrice weekly for 22 weeks. The important feature of this molecule is that it has a very faster sputum conversion rate, and there is no cross resistance with the other antituberculous drugs. However, it is not available in India, so there is no question of using it. We have to keep in mind whenever it is available in India, that it can cause acute prolongation. So whatever the drugs which we are using along with this drug as a part of management of any like cardiac disorders, we have to keep in mind that we have to monitor the ECG and the QT prolongation should not occur. However, there is no adverse drug-drug interaction with the other anti-TB drugs. So there is a clear guidelines that whenever you are not able to use other drugs for the MDR TB, then and then you can use bedaquiline. Coming to the next drug, that is delamanid, that inhibits the mycolic acid synthesis and respiration in the mycobacterium cell. Now this is approved by the European Agency in 2013 for the MDR TB adult patients. Again, the dose is 100 mg BD for 24 weeks. Sputum conversion is again faster and more as compared to the current standard second line regimens. It is undergoing phase 2 and 3 in the US, but it has been already approved in the European Agency. Still not available in India. The sutazolide, as the name suggests, is basically a linezolide analog, and currently we are using linezolide so frequently as a part of XDR-TB management. And we know that there is a lot of problems with the linezolide. It can cause myelosuppression, anemia, thrombocytopenia, leukopenia, one or in a combination, along with the lactic acidosis, anorexia. Lot of problems are there when it is being given for more than 4 to 6 weeks. So the linezolide analog like sutazolide is under phase 3 trial, which has a better antimicrobial activity and improved safety. There is no drug interaction with the antiretrovirals, and it is a potential to shorten the treatment duration. Coming to the SQ109, there is an analog of ethambutol. Again, it is active against drug susceptible as well as MDR-TB. It is antibacterial action. It has a synergistic action with the other anti-TB drugs. There is a low bacterial mutation rate. Currently under the phase 3 trial. The very promising drug, that is last what I am going to describe, is the pretomanide. And the pretomanide is a very wonderful drug. It is a potent antibacterial, bactericidal and sterilizing action. It is safe and well tolerated. The main thing is synergistic effect with the moxifloxacin and pyrazinamide. And today with the TB Alliance group, they have a very wonderful trial which include moxifloxacin, pyrazinamide, and risperidone for 6 months of duration for drug sensitive as well as drug resistant tuberculosis. There is a potential to shorten the treatment of TB. There is no significant cytochrome P450 interaction, so it can be used with other drugs and useful in HIV population. Now, is there any novel combination to treat MDR-TB? I'm just giving the highlight of 3 different trials. One is including the bedaquiline, moxifloxacin, PA24, that is britomycin, and pyrazinamide. Another one is clofazimide, betacarin, PA24, and PZA. And third, 6-month regimen versus 24 months regimen of current standard. So these are the trials are going on, and maybe in the future we have some conclusion remarks. Coming to the drug sensitive TB, is there any new regimen or new molecule or something like that? Looking toward the moxifloxacin, before few years when the trials were going on, we were very excited that moxifloxacin, if is used in a drug sensitive TB as a first line regimen, then we can cut short the duration of treatment from 6 months to 4 months. But that is not to be a fact. Apart from MDR-TB, we are using so frequently moxifloxacin as a part of MDR regimen. The moxifloxacin is being investigated in the treatment of drug-sensitive TB, either as an alternative to ethambutol or INH, that is isoniazid, or to shorten the duration of treatment. I am just going to give you two important trials. One is Remox TB trial. Now the results are already there, and I'm not going to describe the whole trial. In a one-arm standard 2 HR is added by 4 months of 2 HR, 4 months of HR. In a second arm, there is a ethambutol is replaced by moxifloxacin, and another arm INH is replaced by moxifloxacin, and moxifloxacin is given throughout the duration, but total duration of treatment is 4 months. Now, what are the conclusion of this trial? Simple. Shortening of treatment 4 months was not effective. So, duration is still the 6 months. That is the current standard regimen. Moxifloxacin definitely have a better bactericidal activity than standard control regimen, but duration cannot be cut short, and there is no significant difference in adverse event. So, dear friends, today again, shortening of duration is not possible by adding the moxifloxacin as a first line regimen. The another important trial, I am just giving the conclusion of this trial. It is inferior to the standard 6-month treatment. So again, it has proved that moxifloxacin is added as a part of first line regimen is not effective. The important trial which is going on right now is a STAND trial. It is global phase 3 trial. The STAND stands for shortening the treatment by advancing novel drugs. As if you look at the upper part of the picture, in the MDR-TB patients, we are giving so many pills for 18 to 24 months duration of treatment, and it is extensively expensive. While this trial is designed with the 3 molecules, there is britomycin, moxifloxacin, and pyrazinamide, and that is to be given for 6 months of duration. The trial will be over in 2 or 3 years, and we are awaiting the results whether it can go through or not. Coming to the rifampicin shortcomings, we know that there are a lot of shortcomings of rifampicin. It induces the cytochrome P450 system in the liver, which causes the metabolism of its own as well as other drugs. It also causes overexpression of PGP that efflux out the rifampicin from the. So because of that reason, there are some limitation of using the rifampicin at a full dose. There is low and variable bioavailability. There is a subtherapeutic serum level in the blood. There is a poor GI hepatic tolerance, and it causes multiple adverse drug-drug interaction. And because of all this, it will cause slow response and not adherence to the treatment. Now, can we have some overcoming of these limitations? That is the piperine, which inhibit the cytochrome P450 system enzymes and prevent the overexpression of PGP. That is an innovation from the Cadila Pharmaceutical Company, and that has led to the reducing the dose of rifampicin and adding the piperine can give an effect of rifampicin 450 mg in a 50 kg adult patient, which help in maintaining the serum rifampicin levels, improves the response, so there is a sputum conversion rate is more, and reduces the GI side effects, so patient have a better tolerance. Now, if you go to the head-to-head comparison of rifampicin and risorin basically a combination of rifampicin plus piperine. The risorin have a high and sustained serum rifampicin levels. It improves the GI tolerance. It reduces the risk of hepatitis. It is a high in a treatment adherence rate. So ultimately, it will cause better outcome. So these are the benefits of risorin. It is associated with the better tolerability and improved patient compliance. Benefits of improved anti-retroviral treatment leads to the lower treatment failure rates, reduce relapse rate, minimize the risk of development of drug resistance. So where is the place of Risorin in management of tuberculosis? It is a preferred choice in treatment of drug-susceptible pulmonary as well as extrapulmonary TB patients, particularly in those patients where the conditions are there which known to decrease the rifampicin absorption, where the patients who are not likely to tolerate the 450 mg of dose of rifampicin, or it can be used as an ideal switchover therapy for patients who develop intolerable GI side effects or hepatotoxicity with conventional dose of rifampicin. Or it can be useful option in those patients who are already high risk for the development of hepatotoxicity like alcoholics, elderly and malnourished patients. Now this is as far as the treatment part is concerned. Now the main part, whether if you diagnose the patient early, first thing. Second thing, if you diagnose the patient whether it is sensitive or the resistant TB, and even in the resistance, which drugs are resistant, if you diagnose it early, then you can manage it properly so that the patient can transmit the resistance strain to the other people very less. So how can you confirm the diagnosis of tuberculosis? There are only 3 gold standard methods to confirm the diagnosis. First is histopathology and demonstration of FEAB in that particular slide, which is, there is no advancement as far as this histopathology is concerned. The detection of FEAB or acid fast bacilli on smear examination, again, there is no advancement except in our centers we have a luxury to have immunofluorescence and particularly concentration method which can pick up even low load of bacilli. The third is TB culture. If you grow the mycobacterium in any culture, then it is a wonderful, it is confirmed diagnosis. And there are molecular tests available which can not only give you the confirmation as well as the resistance pattern. Now, as far as the cultures are concerned, is there an advancement? I cannot say it's an advancement, it is now routine to do a culture in a liquid media. We never use now LJ media for the culture of TB. We usually use either Bactec or Bactec Alert or MG for liquid culture media for tuberculosis. Why it is so? Because there is two important reasons. It is a very high sensitivity, so it can grow bacilli more with a more affordability. And second thing is turnaround time. In a liquid culture media, it is hardly 2 to 3 weeks as compared to 4 to 6 weeks in a LJ media. So now we are using routinely as a liquid media for the culture. Now coming to the second important part, that is now WHO in the government has approved is an expert, that is a gene expert or MTB assay. Now what is this assay? Basically it's a detection of nucleic acid amplification test which detects the gene of the TB bacilli. The beauty of this test is it detects it gives you diagnosis within 2 hours. You just put a chip in the machine that within 2 hours you have a diagnosis. Not only it gives the diagnosis of MTB complex, but it can give you idea whether this particular bacilli is resistant to rifampicin or not. So 2 advantages with a single test. The positivity in a sputum smear positive patients is excellent, more than 96%. So this is again a very wonderful dose, and we are routinely using this test in our day in day out practice. So this is basically a test. They will give you the result MTB detected, whether it is low or high, and the resistance to rifampicin is detected or not. The second important test is line probe assay, that is genotype MTBDR+. Again, what is line probe assay? It gives you can be performed on a patient specimen directly or in a culture. Actually, it was ideally innovated for the using in a culture only. But nowadays, because of even the culture will take time, 2 to 3 weeks. So we are using sometimes in a patient who has a history of 3 years duration of AKT in a form of various drugs. Then we are using it as on the spot, on the smear LPA test. Now what it will detect? It will detect 3 different genes, RPOB, CATG and INA. What it gives you result, whether it detects the MTB complex as well as resistant to rifampicin and isoniazid both. So it will give you a wonderful results whether this patient is MDR or not. The results are within 1 to 2 days. So waiting for the 4 to 6 weeks to culture to grow and another 15 to 20 days to get a DST, you will have an on-the-spot result whether the patient is MDR or not. This is basically a test. They give you the results, and this is the interpretation of the test. The MTB complex is present or not, and the rifampicin resistance is present or not. The another line probe assay, that is MTBDR SL assay, that is second line assay. This is again more in the form of if you want to have a patient have a exposure to fluoroquinolones, aminoglycosides. So this is basically a help to detect the resistance to second line drugs. It detects the mutation in different variety of genes, which result into the whether the fluoroquinolones are resistant or not, ethambutol is resistant or not, or aminoglycoside. So these three drugs, whether they are resistant or not, can be picked on the spot. So this is basically help in a diagnosis of XDR-TB. So you can design your regimen right from beginning on a first day, whether what you want to give it, and basically this is basically another important advantage of line probation. So we are nowadays seeing so many patients of non-tuberculous mycobacteria. So if your smear is positive and gene expert is negative, what it interprets? You are seeing this AB in a smear, but gene expert is negative, means there is a problem. It may be a non-tuberculous mycobacteria. So once gene expert is negative and smear is positive, you will think about the non-tuberculous mycobacteria. And before 1 or 2 years, we are used to do a lot of biochemical tests to diagnose various species of non-tuberculous mycobacteria. Now we have a line probation available. You just put it on the smear. You can have a diagnosis of whether a Mycobacterium abscessus, Kansasi, Fortschittum, Chiloni, whatsoever it is there. There are two important bedside tests available. What I would like to mention is usually a LAM assay. LAM is basically mean for lipoarabinomannan level. Now it is approved and it is available in few other countries. We just give you a 30-minute result. Just you have to like Preg-card color test. You have some strip of, you have to put a urine and a vital side and you have a result. The patient is suffering from TB. It's a very high specificity, almost more than 96%. But sensitivity is low, so it is not, and it is still not in a current clinical practice, not available in India. Just last 2 slides, just to warn you, many of the people, they are using this quantiferon TB gold test, which is IGRA test, for diagnosis of TB. That is totally foolish. It will not give you idea whether the patient is suffering from active TB or not. It will just give you idea whether the patient have a past exposure of tuberculous bacilli. So it's basically used to diagnose latent tuberculous bacterial infection, not for the active TB. So this test is basically designed to diagnose LTBI, latent tuberculosis, in those patients who want to give a monoclonal antibodies, you want to give some sort of immunosuppressive therapy, you want to give chemotherapy for malignancy, then this can be used, but it cannot be used for diagnosis. Another foolish test or rubbish test which has been now thrown into the garbage is serology. There is IgG and IgM TB. Before 1 or 2 years, lot of people they are coming just with the results. TB દવા લખવાની છે gynecologist કીધું છે IgM positive છે. This test is rubbish. Now it has been banned by government. It is not available now. No laboratory can perform it. But maybe in the future some specific serology will be available. So with this diagnostic and treatment innovations, I am ending my talk and thank you. Thank you very much. So let me summarize the talk in the last slide. The rapid diagnosis TB is possible with the, I had mentioned the test. The newer drugs have a potential to improve the outcomes in MTR TB. And for treatment, as far as drug sensitivity TB is concerned, the minimum 6 months is required. Now it is still the current gold standard. Another important thing is wherever we can use rifampicin as a part of problematic, whether it is a patient is already have some profile that can give you hepatotoxicity, or patient is not tolerating rifampicin 450 mg, where we can use Risorin, where the rifampicin is basically 200 mg and people is 100 mg. Thank you very much.